more time. Do a check one more time.
Check, check. Check for Mark. I was telling my daughter dad jokes yesterday. For dad jokes? Shit's new one. Did we hear that one? That's not a bad joke. We're on?
We're
streaming? Good evening. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight and watching on our live stream through our Ewing Public Television's channel there. Hope everyone is having an enjoyable summer, staying safe and staying healthy as we make our way towards a new school year. I'm joined by the School Business Administrator, Mr. Dennis Nettleton, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Shabashi. We will be leading you tonight through our presentation. Moving forward, the Ewing schools in 2021, 2022, opening our schools safely and effectively. And, let's be honest, the optimism we had, 3 weeks ago has really kind of faded in the face of the Delta variant and some of the worsening public health news. But we're still excited to have kids back. I mean, that's why we're here, and that's what we do. And our goal is to do this given the guidance, and the directives that we get from the Department of Education in the state in a way that is as safe and as effective as possible. First thing I'd like to do is take a quick moment and look back to last year and really express my thanks and gratitude to everyone in the Ewing School community for their support as we navigated an entire year of COVID-19. Really appreciative of the effort of all the teachers, the staff members, and the support of the entire community. We did a lot of things, well here in Ewing that we're very proud of. We had kids in our elementary schools from day one, all day, each and every day, for a full day if they so desired. And you did not see that very often. We had school districts that did not have students back until May, sometimes even June, and we had kids in school each and every day from the day after Labor Day to the end of the school year. Always had to navigate a lot of challenges, but again, it was very rewarding to have that and to achieve it. And a shout out to Lohr School, which never shut down all year and really was very proud of the efforts of everyone. But not only that, we had an effective blended learning program at Fisher Middle School and Ewing High School. And it worked out in Ewing last year that we really had about 50% of our kids who selected a fully virtual option, our virtual learning program 2.0, and then 50% who were in our in-person learning. We had a number of staff members who were given accommodations, and we were able to take care of them. We navigated some difficult budgetary challenges and did it in a way where none of our staff members lost their job. And we also, had a lot of things. What I was really happy about too is we kept making progress, kept moving forward. In the end of the year, to have many of our activities return, to have the return of music in our schools, to have a virtual theater program, to have sports throughout the entire year and activities were things that were very important to us and very proud about. So to have that continued progress, to have a fully effective functioning virtual learning program, to have kids in school each and every day were things that we were really satisfied and took a lot of pride in. So, but now we're looking forward to 2021, 2022, and going to now kind of release our district theme.
The Ewing Schools stay strong, moving forward.
Ewing Public Schools staying strong, moving forward.
The Ewing Schools staying strong, moving forward.
Ewing Schools staying strong, moving forward. Ewing Schools staying strong, moving forward. Ewing Schools
Staying strong.
moving forward.
I think Dr. Shibashi was going for an Academy Award there. Did you see that dramatic pause before she delivered her line with such poise and aplomb? It was a very impressive performance, Dr. Shibashi. I talked to Mr. Nettleton quite a bit as we worked together. He's a big Rocky fan. He keeps trying to tell me about the best Rocky. He says that the first one, the original, was the best, 1976, I think? How old were you in 76? But he still says the first Rocky is the best one. Now, I always argue for Rocky IV, Ivan Drago, ended the Cold War, but he also likes Rocky Balboa and the theme that comes in that movie, which is you have to keep moving forward. Nothing's going to hit as hard as life, but you have to keep progressing, keep moving forward. And that's what we did last year, and that's what we're doing this year as well. So we love our prevailing theme from last year, Ewing strong, so we kind of keep that, and we're going to stay strong, but we're going to do our very best to move forward and keep doing good things for kids and the community. So we learned a lot from last year, and what we learned is that our protocols and our practices, they really did work. When you implement these things in schools, we did not see any sort of dramatic or profound spread of COVID in our schools. When you implement physical distancing, when you have effective mask wearing, screening and quarantining when a case emerges. I mean, we certainly had cases. You all know it from the instant alert and the messages. And we do our best to communicate as effectively as possible and be open and transparent. So we did have cases, but one thing that we never saw was any sort of profound, significant, or dramatic spread in our schools, because we implemented these things, including sound hygienic practices, aggressive cleaning and sanitation approaches, and strategic facility approaches as well. When you put these things in place, we could learn that our schools, we could educate kids in our schools each and every day in a safe and effective manner. But there are new challenges this year. September of this year is going to look significantly different from September of last year. COVID is still here. We now have the challenges of the Delta variant, but the waiver for virtual learning, what we were able to provide last year with our virtual learning 2.0 was allowed because we had a waiver from the Department of Education and the governor. That waiver, right, in his public declaration of emergency has been eliminated. He has issued a mandate that all of our students will be in for a full day in-person instruction. All right, that comes from the top. Now we're going to have, like I told you in my opening, we had 50% of our families who selected fully virtual learning last year. This year not being the case, there's going to be more kids in our schools, more children in the classroom. You may recall last year that we instituted a pretty innovative approach at the elementary level of our instructional pods and our 2 cycles, which Dr. Shibashi and her team worked very hard on. This year, it will be a traditional setting in the elementary classroom, like it was the years before last. And also, right now, we are moving forward with a full day of instruction. There will not be early dismissal, and we'll be serving lunch in our schools. We did it, and Mr. Nettleton and his team did a great job at the elementary schools last year, but the entire year last year, we did not serve lunch at Fisher Middle School and at Ewing High School. This year, as we sit here today, we will be, and Dennis will talk about that a little bit later. And some of the things we're dealing with right now, as we sit here on August 16th, a little bit over 3 weeks away from welcoming back our kids on September 8th. Right now, according to the New Jersey Department of Public Health, Mercer County is in the yellow or moderate risk category of COVID-19 classification. One thing we have this year, which we did not have last year, which is a good and positive thing, is vaccines that are highly effective. And it's something that makes me feel really good, because one of my biggest concerns last year was the health, safety, and welfare of our staff. You know, one of the things that kept me up last year in an incredibly stressful time was worrying about one of our staff members who may be at more risks, because we all know that our kids with COVID still, do well. They do better. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say there's no risk. Of course there is. But I was really worried last year about our adult members, our teachers, our staff members. But now we're dealing with very effective vaccines that are readily available. And we know that over 82% of our staff have been vaccinated. Our student vaccinations, and again, a challenge, we know that it is available for students ages 12 and up. So at Fisher Middle School, Ewing High School, many of our students will be vaccinated. But we also know a significant challenge in our elementary schools at Lohr, Antile, and Parkway, that there will be classrooms full of students who have not been vaccinated, which is a significant challenge for us. And we know that the Delta variant, which changed everybody's life over the past 3 weeks, because the fact is, as we began our planning 3 weeks ago, we were looking at 80 cases in the state of New Jersey. All right, now we're upwards of 1,300 to 1,400, and all of this attributed to the rapid spread of the Delta variant. We know that it is more contagious, all right, and we know that it appears also to be impacting our kids and adults in different ways. So these are the challenges we are facing as we move forward. So, preparing our guidance for the upcoming year, we've met with our stakeholders. We have pandemic response teams in each school. We have a district-wide return to school teams. We've talked with our public health experts. We've sought input from our various fellow superintendents, county public health members, and statewide educational leaders about the best ways to move forward. Our guidance reflected in a couple documents: the official state, the road forward, health and safety guidance, which has helped shape an addendum to our restart and recovery plan to reopen schools, which is where much of this source material comes from today. And all of this will be available on our website as we move forward into next week. So a big thing we were wrestling with over the past several weeks was wearing masks. As Danita and Dennis knows, at one point we had spent a couple days working on pages of mask guidance based upon the current state of COVID spread in the county, but all of that came kind of, moot when Governor Murphy issued an executive order. And that executive order is that effective last Monday, all students, educators, staff, and visitors will be required to wear a mask inside of all school buildings, regardless of vaccination status. So that kind of, basically, as they know, we had a couple overview here on the slide, which is now simply his executive order, which we must follow here. And, one would think if we move forward into the school year, public health news gets a little bit better, perhaps that executive order gets lifted, but as of right now, we all have to follow this mandate from the governor of New Jersey, which is when you walk into these schools, you're wearing a mask. We had our new teacher orientation today. Always an exciting day, right, Danita? We welcome our new staff, and they're always very excited, very enthusiastic to be joining us. And Board President Lisa McConnell, who's here today, I'm going to wave real quick there. So she joins and she welcomes them to Ewing. And Lisa made a good point. It's like, we did this last year with masks on. I didn't think we would do it again a year later with masks on, but indeed, still here we are. So we know that's a challenge. Listen, our kids did it last year. They did well with it. It's something which we've proven that it is an effective mitigation strategy, as I said in my initial slide. But right now, that's the reality that we are dealing with, that when you return to school, you walk into our buildings, you're putting on a mask right now. Screening. We learned last year that screening is a necessary part of managing COVID effectively. It is important, it is essential. It must be done. But what we are not going to do this year is require the daily online attestation, which many of you were doing last year. All right? We are not going to require that you go online and do it. To be honest, it was very cumbersome and difficult for parents. It's very cumbersome and difficult for our staff to figure out each and every day who did the attestation and who did not. And remember, instead of having, 300 kids in Laura, there's going to be 600 plus. And instead of having, 250, 300 in the high school, there's going to be 1,100, with the hybrid schedule. So it's really going to be on the honor system. There's going to be signs everywhere. It's going to be well known each and every day that do not do your screening at home. Do not send your child. And for our staff, do not come to work if you have a cough, sore throat, muscle aches, loss of smell or taste, have been around anyone with COVID, all right? Do not send them, but we are not going to require the daily attestation because of what, the impact that it had on our families and on our staff and the tremendous amount of time that it takes. So we're shifting to the honor system here, but it is vital and essential that this screening takes place each and every day to keep our schools as safe as possible. So quarantining, we recognize that we will have to quarantine some students for possible COVID exposure. Now, one thing that we did well last year, which I kind of alluded to, is we have a team of certified contact tracers in the district who immediately get on these things and determine who is a close contact and who will have to isolate and who will have to stay home. Where's George Cahill? George, give a quick wave. George is a former police officer, so he's trained in investigations, and he tends to lead our COVID investigations. He has completed the COVID contact tracing course and is fully certified, as are a number of our other staff members, including some of our outstanding healthcare team. So when we find out of a case and learn it, they immediately pick it up and make a determination on who's going to have to stay out and how long could that possibly be. But remember last year, as I mentioned too, Laura School, the only one not to pivot to virtual. Parkway had to do it once. This year, like last year, under the governor's mandate, I had the flexibility as superintendent to pivot a school to virtual, to say, okay, we have a number of cases here. Parkway School is going to move to a fully virtual learning platform. I cannot do that this year on my sole authority. I can only do that if I meet with our public health leaders, our public health department, and they say, yes, Superintendent Nitti, you're going to have to pivot that school to a fully virtual learning platform. So I no longer have that flexibility. A little overview of quarantining. If you are vaccinated, all right, and you travel, and when I say travel, you're cool if you make a trip to the city. This is outside of our tri-state or contiguous, New Jersey area. But if you go to Florida or take a trip to Texas, about quarantining, if you're vaccinated, right, you do not have to quarantine, but we ask that you monitor your symptoms, all right, and if anything does indeed emerge, then look for an opportunity to isolate and get tested. But people who are not vaccinated, and that would include obviously our kids who are at the elementary level, if they are traveling, we do ask that there be a period of quarantine that you see up there. It's recommended to get tested with a viral test 1 to 3 days prior to your trip, and then retest after travel and stay home and self-quarantine for 7 full days. All right, if you choose to not test, quarantine for 10 days. That's if you're traveling, out of our immediate area. Some items of note. As you know, we worked very hard last year to make our district a one-on-one district, a fully blended, potentially virtually connected school community. So we also now have an integrated learning management system called Canvas. So we are prepared, and ready to go to any type of instructional setting. So if there's a chance that for example, if a classroom, if we have a couple cases, and that classroom has to pivot to a fully virtual platform, we are quite capable of doing so. So we're allowed to do that, and the mandate from the government is that we do it in a way that is as similar as possible to a regular day of school. And we are prepared to do that because of significant investment of time, effort, and energy on behalf of the school district. Now, I have gotten this and we've checked here. If you have a health concern right now, your child may be immune compromised, you're navigating a health crisis at home, right? And you do not feel comfortable given the current health state that exists, in Ewing Township or the state of New Jersey or Mercer County, right? It is possible for us to look for some sort of remote instructional option, but it should be done through your building's counseling department, the INRS team, all right, where they meet and review the needs and then set up an instructional program. But it will not be identical to what we had last year, at least at this time, because we just don't have the capability to do it. But trust us, we care about the kids, and we want to put together a quality instructional program for any child. And you know how much the educators in each school care about the students, so they will work to put together a meaningful remote learning instructional program for any child or home right now that may be struggling with a significant health or medical challenge and does not feel comfortable sending their child at this particular time. And, one of the things that really kind of fast-tracked a lot of things that we do virtually and remote. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of virtual connections. For example, things like back to school nights, there'll be a virtual connection. We have Meet Principal Conway coming up next week, and that will have an in-person aspect and then a virtual program, which is very convenient, just like you guys too. I'm a parent as well. And when it comes to, all right, I have a parent-teacher conference, I have to get in my car, drive, sit in a little chair outside in the hallway until they're ready for me, and then go in and meet with the teacher when, you can just walk into your kitchen and click a button and have your teacher right there in front of you. And also, I think it really increases that connectivity between the classroom and the family. So there still will be, a lot of virtual connections, for example, even live streaming this meeting today and our board meetings and things of that nature. One thing this year as well, we sent out a lot of our COVID notifications via instant alert. This year we're just going to set up a dashboard on the website where you can go and check and see for any school COVID cases as a staff, as a student, when it took place. It's just a more effective way to do this rather than send out the myriad of instant alert notifications that we did throughout last year as we initially navigated this public health crisis. And we are moving forward with our extracurricular activities, and I'm very proud of this decision that we made last year because we debated quite a bit about it. Should we move forward with soccer or with football? And we did make the decision to do so in the high school, and there were certainly a lot of challenges and a lot of work, but our kids need it. They really do. They need to have that opportunity to go out there and feel like a kid. So we were really proud of the fact that we supported those programs. And we're moving forward this year, really with all of our programs here at Fisher Middle School, Ewing High School, our music programs in a very innovative way, our theater program, our activities. We want our kids now, and we were talking before this began. If you're starting in middle school, 2 years you're in sixth grade, your sixth grade year pretty much ended in March. Your seventh grade year was, navigating this hybrid, blended world, and now you're in eighth grade, and here we are 3 weeks before. We're all still wearing masks. So that's your whole middle school career really tainted by COVID. And we want to keep moving forward with our program and doing what's best and right for students. Which is a nice segue to the next slide, in which I'm going to turn over to Dr. Shibashi. We know that this is going to be a tough transition and a tough year for a lot of students. Coming back to school full time, many of them were fully virtual last year. And we want to share that our main priority is their social emotional wellness. We want to make sure that psychologically, mentally, emotionally, that they're handling this transition in a positive way. So Dr. Shibashi and her team have set up a number of supports for you. So you want to come up and join us?
Good evening, everyone. We know that over the last 18 months, our students have experienced an interruption in their education and their learning. And we want to make sure that we can close the gap. But we also acknowledge that we can't close the gap if our students are suffering emotionally from this traumatic situation that has happened through the pandemic. So we want to take care of their social emotional needs first, make sure that they're in a good solid place there, and then we will work on closing those academic gaps. So the first thing we are doing is we want to make sure that school is a warm and inviting environment. Over the summer, we had students here for a summer program, and that was something that we learned. To see, especially our younger students, come into the building all but skipping, because they were just happy to see other kids their age, and couldn't wait to be in the room. And even some of our middle school kids who came, begrudgingly had tears in their eyes just because they were happy to be back in school. But they also talked about the challenges of not being in school and how hard it was to be home. So we want to make sure that our schools are inviting places. Beyond all of our safety stickers and reminders, we want to make sure that our buildings and our teachers are supporting that need first. The second thing that we want to do is we want to balance this need for social emotional health of our students and closing academic gaps. So you will see in the beginning of school, there will be a lot of team building activities for students throughout the district, K-12. Each building has designed their own plan so that we can work on becoming a community again, face to face. Part of that balance means that we're gonna gradually introduce more work to our students. We need to build up their stamina. They've spent a lot of screen time and we wanna move away from that. We don't wanna give it up completely because there were some positive things about the technology, but we don't wanna live with that all the time. Reading stamina and all of those things will have to be built. We're gonna take our time doing that, which means we're gonna implement what we're calling a gradual release into assessments and homework. So for the first week or so of school, you are not gonna see a lot of homework coming home. There will be homework time during the school day for that practice, just to help students build their skills. And then you're gonna see this increase of homework coming home. And we're gonna do this gradually so that we can build stamina. We're also not gonna do a test the first week of school. I guess I could say, unfortunately, we have to do the state Start Strong assessment with a window that opens the third week of September. So we will start doing those assessments there. We just don't want our students who haven't been in our buildings for 18 months to walk into a building and we say, hi, how you doing? Sit down and take a test. That just doesn't seem to make good sense in making it an environment that students want to come and participate in. So we do have high expectations and academic goals, but we also acknowledge that our students and our staff need to spend a week or two working on the rules of school and the routine of schools and being in a building and not being home where you're sitting in your pajamas and getting up whenever you want to go to the bathroom or get something to eat or something to drink, but that there's a way to behave in school. So that's going to be the gradual release program for us.
Yeah, as Dr. Shabashi alludes to, I mean, you could have walked out of Ewing High School in March of your sophomore year, and then you're coming back now as a senior and really not have been back in the school if you were fully virtual last year. So that is going to be something that we recognize we really have to support the kids.
Yeah, so that's what we are starting with. So how are we also going to support our students? As I said, each building has devised a plan. The first thing we want to do is starting in the next week or so, you will get notification about building tours. We want our students and parents to come in and tour the building, to walk through and see what our buildings look like, to see all of the signage, to see that almost everywhere you walk, there's a hand sanitizer station, there's arrows telling people to walk on the right or left and the social distancing, especially for students who haven't been in our schools for 18 months. We want them to come in and be able to walk through the building. Each building will be notified. The middle school has already put out their tour schedule. They sent something out about a week ago. Elementary and high school will send something out this week so that families can sign up for small group tours, because we have to socially distance, for small group tours with either the principal or staff member or the school counselor or dean of students, just so students can get an idea of what the building looked like and to get a feel for the building. We have some students who are going to be 7th graders in Fisher Middle School who've never been to the middle school because they left in 5th grade, they weren't here in 6th, and now they're gonna be a middle school student. They didn't have that opportunity to do that. So the first thing we're gonna do is tours. At the elementary level, we are going to implement a responsive classroom morning meeting time. That's where students will share and teachers will provide social emotional skill building for students. All of our staff will have a refresher course, and they're opening a school PD related to how to conduct a morning meeting and support students. At the middle school, they are going to create advisory team and advisory team meetings. They're gonna do an extended homeroom so they can have a little bit longer time over the first 6 weeks of school so that they can do advisory team meetings, which will also teach social skills appropriate for middle school students. And the high school is planning what they're calling community family meetings the first 3 days of school. They will have a full day schedule, but they're creating an interesting use of time so that they can do some team building by grade level in the building, and then they will do some continual advisory support through the guidance department. We have a new director of guidance, of counseling and assessment for the district who is housed at the high school, who will continue to work with Mr. Schmiel and develop another way for high school counselors to be more connected to high school students and to make students aware of the supports that are available within the counseling office.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shibashi. One of the ways we were able to have kids back last year from the first day of school to the last day of school is really your support. All of our buildings are air conditioned. Mr. Nettleton has an outstanding facilities team. They work very hard allowing physical distancing to occur and making sure that the classrooms and your buses and your cafeterias were as safe as possible. So Mr. Nettleton is going to touch on a couple challenges and how he's going to do some things in his areas of responsibilities, which include transportation, food service, and our school buildings. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Nitti.
And he tries to say Rocky 3 is not a good movie, but it really is an excellent movie.
I'm just wondering who's this Rocky person is. I don't know what he's talking about.
Keep moving forward, Mr. Nettleton.
Thank you. So busing, that was a challenge last year. It's going to be a challenge this year as well. I mean, last year when we initially, oh, you're going to let me have the clicker. You never let me have the clicker. That's pretty exciting. This is a big moment for me, everybody. One of the issues we face is you have a 54-passenger bus, and what the state typically tells us we have to do is we have to fit as many kids on that bus as possible. Until last year, where they're saying, well, now try to distance kids. How do you distance kids on a bus? It's really kind of an impossible task. So we took the approach last year in saying to parents, if you're uncomfortable and you have the ability to drive your children, please do so. And I think we're kind of in the same boat this year. If you are uncomfortable and you have the means to drive, please feel free to do so. That being said, we're running all of our bus routes this year. Kids will be required to wear, actually everybody on the bus is required to wear a mask. That's still an executive order of the governor. We're going to open the windows when we can. The buses will be cleaned regularly. But the big concern that I have is nationally, there is a really big shortage of bus drivers. It's not just here in New Jersey, it is throughout the country. About several years ago, prior to COVID, the Federal Transportation Board changed the requirements to get what is called a passenger certification on a commercial driver's license. Basically, they made the test a lot harder. So it became harder to get a bus driver. If you've been to any of our board meetings in the last 4 or 5 years, you've probably heard me say transportation is becoming more and more difficult. The contractors that we work with sent me a letter this year saying, hey, we think there may be some transportation disruption because we lost 20% of our workforce during COVID. If you think about the average bus driver, it's usually something that somebody does a lot of times in retirement just for a few extra bucks. You know, COVID seems to affect folks that are a little bit more on in years, more so than other people. Well, I think a lot of people just said, you know, it's not worth the 20 bucks an hour or whatever it is. Incidentally, if you're around the schools, there is signage up. We are looking for bus drivers, $25 an hour. I'm just gonna plug that to anybody in the room. So we're gonna do everything we can. We are gonna try to supplement where we can with our own buses. We have 4 buses, but currently I only have 2 drivers. We're gonna try to buy some more buses and try to hire some more drivers, but the reality is if I get a driver who has the appropriate certification, there's a good chance I'm poaching them from one of the contractors we already work with, which is just gonna create a little bit of disruption on their end. We will do everything we can, we're gonna work through it. But generally, the bus situation is kind of just what it is. We're gonna make it as safe as possible. We clean our buses, our district buses in-house in between runs when we can. Both drivers have been taught how to use the little magic spray wand thingy. Mark knows, he's here, he knows the name and whatever it is, but they've been trained to use it and there'll be one on the bus so that if they're, before they, you know, go on to their next bus run, they'll be able to spray the bus down. And then the ride over, it should be clean. So food service was another issue. You know, as Mr. Nitti said last year, you know, we fed the elementary kids, but we had, you know, smaller numbers in our school. So we were able to put student desks in the cafeteria 6 feet apart and kids could eat relatively safely. With a lot more of our kids being back, you know, it's going to really be hard to distance them. You've seen the cafeterias, you know, what they look like, and usually the kids are pretty well crammed in and they're doing what kids do. You know, they're talking to their friends, they're sharing food. Initially, our plan was to reopen the cafeterias with, you know, standard lunch. You know, hey, sort of like the bus, we can't really social distance, so we'll try to just get the kids in and out. We really wanted to start serving regular, you know, hot lunches, you know, again. We took the approach having, you know, that was, you know, 3-4 weeks ago, and as the Delta variant and the cases have climbed, what we decided to do was we're going to stick with what we've been doing, but on a district scale. So we're gonna have several lunch options. Mostly it's gonna be grab and go, because the idea is you wanna make it flexible so that the principals have the opportunity to move the kids around to keep them distanced. Like, you know, maybe one solution is on a day where it's rainy and they can't go outside to eat, the principal can bring some kids in the auditorium. We don't want kids running around with the lunch trays and the food. So to start, we're gonna start with some limited options of food. We're considering all allergies and all of that. And then as the year goes on, we're gonna see how it goes and hopefully try to introduce some hot meals, even, you know, that can still be flexible. You know, we can maybe do a cheeseburger or a chicken sandwich or a hot dog as the year goes on. And our hope really is that, you know, by some point during the school year, things are maybe a little bit more normal and we can start going into lunch lines again. But again, that's going to depend on all the public health needs. Now, some of the things we are doing, you know, like I said, alternative spaces, distancing, you know, discouraging kids, you know, from sharing meals because that happens, and certainly encouraging, you know, the hand washing and all. You know, you'll go through, and in about 3 weeks, there'll be nothing but signs and hand sanitizer and soap dispensers everywhere in the school. You can see it if you go out in the hallway. There's tons of them still there, and there's just going to be more. We're going to make it really, really easy.
And one of the things we were very appreciative of last year, we still continue with this year, was the outdoor learning spaces. We have our tents at all of our schools, which have proven to be very popular and very you know, effective in providing a place for kids to gather, a place for kids to eat, because we really are going to embrace physical distancing as we reopen our schools, and hopefully things get better as we make our way into the fall.
We're actually going to be adding 2 additional spaces. I believe one here, though the location hasn't been determined. And at the high school in the courtyard, we're going to be putting up a tent, at least for the fall, and putting some, we got some picnic benches out there that, you know, we think could stay there long term. But in the interim, we're going to put them, you know, under a tent so that in inclement weather, you know, the kids have a place outside to go and you know, spread out as much as they can. So the next couple slides, I'm going to run through them kind of quickly. They were in, a lot of them are really just updated slides for last year's presentation. Just giving everybody an idea, like, well, how are we cleaning differently and what are we doing in that respect? You know, we changed our cleaning protocols completely to really just focusing on high surface areas, desktops, door handles, bathrooms. We have, with HV ventilation, we've purchased a bunch of mobile air purifiers with ionization. We're doing that in, occasionally from time to time, a piece of equipment like a unit ventilator, which has an air filter on it. If that breaks down, we deploy those air purifiers to those rooms so that the air circulation, and it's still being circulated and cleaned. We actually are trying to procure another 200 of those units right now. We have tons of PPE, which you'll see some numbers of in a few, and increased accountability. Our head custodians, did a great job last year, and I'm not just saying that because one of them's in the audience, but no, they really did a great job of really working the checklist that we developed with, our provider, the folks that provide us with the cleaning solutions, said, hey, here's the best case scenario with our nurses, our school physician, and really just worked out very nicely. I was very pleased with the job that they did. Again, enhanced cleaning protocols and really just, making the hygiene items accessible. It used to be maybe there was hand sanitizer somewhere in the classroom. Well, now there's going to be several in the classroom. There's going to be additional extra masks if a kid has an accident and, sneezes, gets wet, tears it, whatever happens. There'll be additional supplies for them. And then, just through talking to the kids, really just, continue to create awareness like we've been doing. The disinfection plan, we have a plan if a case were to come up in a particular schoolroom, there's a particular cleaning protocol that we do. Now it's interesting, we would do nothing different if we found out that there was a child or a teacher or staff member in a classroom with COVID that we are currently doing every day. So what happens is the head custodian or the custodians will come in, they spray it down with the electrostatic sprayer. When they're done doing that, we deploy an ultraviolet light cart into the classroom that bathes the classroom in ultraviolet light for 20 minutes. And based on everything we know, between the cleaning material that we use and the UV light, that should kill just anything that's on a surface in the classroom. There's a lot of equipment that we have in the district. We are in the process of starting our HVAC renovation project, which was part of the referendum in 2018. And, the ionization and the UV light that I was just talking about, once these classrooms have their unit ventilators replaced, those unit ventilators inside the mechanism will have a UV light and an ionizer as well as a filter. So that'll all be in the equipment when we're done. Now, that's going to be an ongoing process. Everybody pray for me that it doesn't take more than the next year and a half. But once that's done, all that stuff that we learned is really good in terms of preventing spread of not just COVID, but all kinds of viruses, influenza. It will really make the buildings a lot healthier for staff and students. This is just to give you guys an idea of how much stuff we went out and bought. Right now, currently, I have 21,000 masks of various sizes in stock. 18,000 and so pairs of gloves, 700 new units of hand sanitization and the like. And you can see down there those Odorox high capacity air purifiers, 200 Medify air purifiers, and we're getting more. We're also looking into finding a really, really big air purifier that we could deploy to a room, say like an auditorium or a cafeteria. The little ones that we have are pretty much good size for a classroom. But if I were to stick them in here, they probably really wouldn't do much except for, the area right around them. So rather than get 15 and have 15 little devices sitting in here, we're looking at maybe trying to find one that can really move the air in this building and bring them in. And fortunately, the federal government and the state of New Jersey has given us a lot of funding through grants that is allowing us, to do this. If we didn't have that funding, it would be really hard to do the things that we're doing right now. Again, this is just the preparedness checklist. When I talked about accountability earlier, what the custodial department has to do. And one of the things that we had was a problem early in the pandemic was supply. You remember you couldn't get toilet paper. Well, we couldn't get things like gloves and masks, and at one point, soap for the soap dispensers. So what we did is we went through different supply chains, and instead of just the normal vendor we use, we went to 2 or 3 vendors, and we got a steady supply. So our goal is to try to keep what we think is 180 days, the number of days kids are in school, of supply of these things on hand at all times until things change. And if they change, maybe we can lighten up. But right now, that's really our goal. That's our, it does get sometimes difficult, like, filters for unit ventilators, for example. Sometimes you can't get the exact one you want, so you got to take the next one. And that's just, we're probably not the only district having. I know we're not in the county, and I know we're not throughout the state, but I would imagine it's a national problem as well, because we all build schools the same way all across the country. Welcome back.
So I'm one of those people, I went right from high school to college and then into teaching. So I've had like 50 straight first days of school, because I went from like kindergarten and high school, and there's always had a first day of school. I always get excited on the first day of school. I always get nervous, and it's tough sleeping the evening before, and it doesn't matter if it was back when I was a teacher or building administrator or now as superintendent. I'll be real nervous, but it's an exciting day. It just is, I mean, there's a reason everybody goes on social media and says little signs, and here's Joey's first day of 4th grade, juniors and seniors, and it's a real important day in our lives, in our kids' lives. So I'm excited about September 8th, 2021, and I know it's going to be unique, like opening day of 2020, but we're still excited to see the kids back, because that's why we're here. That's why we exist, to welcome these kids back to our schools, be it Laura, Parkway, Antile, Fisher, Ewing High School. And it's wonderful now to see the kids starting their practices and representing Ewing High School. So we're pumped up. We know it's difficult, it's challenging. Yeah, it's scary, but we are excited to welcome back our charges and our kids and hopefully give them a great and safe school year. So we spent about 50 minutes now going over our plan, given the current situation on how to open our schools. And I certainly hope it was informative to you. I think the next logical thing is, when I hit the next one, if you have any questions, you can email them here. What do we have, thousands of people on the live stream today? Thousands of people watching on the live stream. But if you have a question now, we'll take them. But what we're going to ask is that you have to come up and use this microphone, correct, Mark? Because so people watching on the live stream can hear you. You want me to go turn it on?
It's already ready.
Okay. So if you have a question, we're physically distanced. Why don't you begin first, man? You can,
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Yarty. I'm a pastor, and my kids go to entire school. Well, I have some concern and some questions concerning about the school year. And I work for the state also. I was asked that, then I called the school, the entire school, the principal, and I spoke with him. And then he recommended me to talk to the superintendent.
You ever do that?
And then I spoke to the superintendent the last time, and I gave him my concern, and I told him I would be here concerning about the safety of my children, and not just only just me, but the whole entire Ewing school and all the kids. I'm having a baby next month. I'll be giving birth, so I'm a little bit nervous and concerned about my kids going back to school because of what I saw last year. My kids were going to virtues online, and which did an excellent job. And I really applaud all the teachers in Ewing School. So this year we was told that, oh, no more virtues, so I was a little bit nervous. I said, well, if the kids come to school and not everybody's taking the vaccine in New Jersey or in Ewing County, so it's like we don't know parents that didn't take the vaccine, the kids will be in school. We don't know who's gonna bring the COVID in the school. Because last year we had kids with virtues and some people was in school, and we're still hearing oh, kids having COVID, they had to stay home for 7 days or plus until they will go on vouchers until they get settled. And I was really sad because one of my friends' kids that come to the Victory Middle School had the COVID and took it home. And the whole household was a mess. They all had COVID. The dad, the mom, all the siblings had the COVID. So my concern was like, I'm having this baby, my kids can come from school and say they want to touch their brother, and then I deny them, say, oh no, do not touch your brother because you just came from school. So I spoke with the superintendent by telling him that we want you to speak out for us. Tell the government it should be optional. It should not be demanding that parents should send their kids, in full until they find a way, a situation that they can, put it under control. Because kids, even the mask right now, to breathe in is hard. To even talk through the mask is hard. Imagine you got a 6-year-old coming with masks and they're not even gonna keep it on the way it's supposed to keep it on. I work in the healthcare field, and I know what I saw of people die right in our hands and we took it to people, and I experienced that. So imagine kids coming to school with masks, which is great. I love. Everywhere I go, I wear masks. So I think I met one of the teachers in the parking lot, and I was speaking to her. And I'm gonna go and give my concerns so they can tell the governor, Murphy is a good guy, trust me. I was one of them on the top or in the community trying to make sure we vote for him to make sure that he speaks for us and he won the election. And I really, really love him, trust me. I'm on Facebook, and I boast about my superintendent, I boast about the governor, and I love him very much. But I want him to just please, I'm pleading to him, I'm pleading to the superintendent, whosoever that is in power, that is taking care of Union County, to Mercer County, to speak for the parents. So it should be optional. I'm not demanding anything as a parent, but it's my safety concern as a safety guideline. And I know everything that the teacher are gonna do, but I'm still paranoid and scared. So I want you guys to please do something for us because one teacher was telling me that, they're gonna be trying to think about vaccine in November. I said, but then they go focus until November when the kids have the shot. Then I will be ready. I will be the one bringing my kids to the school like happy. You know what I'm saying? So I want everybody to please, I'm not demanding anything, but I'm just pleading to the district and the governor and superintendent and to the board of education to hear our cry as a parents that kids that was online, we want it should be optional because other states having the optional. So it should not be in New Jersey, it should be demanding. So Governor Murphy, I love you and I vote for you. My whole community, the African American, we all vote for you guys and we want to vote for you again. So please try to do something for us. So it should not be, I'm nervous. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much for those thoughtful comments. We were very proud of our virtual learning program last year. I think the teachers did an outstanding job from any level, from our elementary kids up to the high school level where we had the blended program. But the reality too is it took 10 weeks to prep and prepare and to give kids assignments and assign the teachers for that fully integrated virtual learning program. So it's a significant amount of work, effort, and energy. And right now we were able to offer that, as I said in my presentation, because of a waiver that was issued by the Department of Education for fully virtual instruction, meaning kids didn't have to come to school, which is the first time ever, in my long career, for a day to count, kid has to come to school. And for the first time last year, we were able to look at half of our students and say, They did not come to school, but we had to document our virtual learning program. The state accepted our plan and deemed it to be, high quality instruction, teaching, and learning. As I mentioned too, if you have specific family issues, health issues, medical issues that can be documented, concern, reach out to your school, the INRS team, the guidance counselor, and they will sit down with you and look at options that is best for your child that will be remote. But right now, it's not going to look like what we had last year. Things change quite frequently in today's day and age. I don't know where we'll be 2-3 weeks from now, but that's where we are right now. And as far as we have made our points known, myself, my colleague, Dennis's colleagues, Danita's, because we're hearing this a lot about from parents who were very happy last year. They liked the program. And for a lot of kids, to be honest too, the virtual program worked for them. They were happier, they were in a good place, they enjoyed the experience, but we're working under the guidance which has been issued to us at this time. And our focus will obviously be to be flexible, to be accommodating, and to do what's best for any child. But thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Next question here, then there. We'll go one at a time to keep our physical distance. Thanks.
I actually have 3 questions.
Sure.
All right. The first one is,
Is that good, Mark? You picking it up? Yeah, speak into the mic just a second.
all right, the first question is, seeing as how some students may do the screening, is there any way for students to make up work if they have to quarantine at home?
If we know that the quarantine will be for quite some time, we're definitely going to be innovative in putting a meaningful program. Now, if a child wakes up one day and they have a cough and a cold, and we know for that one day that then it's going to be like, okay, they're out sick. All right, then we're just going to do, that would be an absence. Then they'll work with their teacher for makeup work. But if we know they're going to be out for 10 days because of a COVID contagion or screening, then we're going to do our best to set up meaningful instruction that is best aligned with the high expectations of some sort of virtual component. Sound good, Dr. Shabashi? Is there anything you want to add to that? Okay.
All right, the next question is, how will gym classes run? Are students required to wear masks during the entire gym class or only indoors?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Right now we're looking at our physical education classes really as an opportunity to focus not only on the physical health of our students, but their social emotional wellness. There's a good opportunity as we head into September and October in a traditional schedule. Our phys ed classes will be opportunity for the kids to get outside and get a mask break. Maybe do some light stretching, physical distance walking, but to be honest, to take a break, be outside, because the mandate, the governor said, indoors, masks, just like we're all being dutiful citizens right now. But outdoors, it's going to be a wonderful opportunity at any of our schools for them to get outside with their phys ed teachers and get a socially, physically distanced outdoor mask break, which we believe will be safe and productive. Okay?
All right. Do you expect to make accommodations for late students if there's only 2 bus drivers?
Can you repeat that question?
Is there any accommodation for students arriving late to their first period because there's only 2 bus drivers?
Oh, yeah, we'll be very understanding. Right now, we just have 2 bus drivers, but the vast majority of our morning and afternoon bus runs are done by our contractors. So I think we're in a pretty good place, with our morning and afternoon daily school transportation runs. All right, so that should be fine. Listen, like I said, I've been through a lot of first days of school. There's always hectic the first day of school, and we always have late buses, and you all know that from your kids, going through many years here. But Mr. Nettleton anticipates his biggest challenges being a lot of our athletic runs and things of that nature. Correct, Dennis?
Yeah, although the contractors did sort of qualify that they're having just trouble filling spots. So their priority is going to be doing the day-to-day to and from school runs. And we have, in excess of 50 or 60 different bus runs. So figure 50 or 60 different drivers throughout, that are working for us through our contractor. But it was really difficult to get somebody to actually submit a bid for our athletic and field trip and our extra stuff. So it's going to be interesting, but I would say in general, if the bus is getting late to school, we typically would mark those students out late.
And to simply answer your question, we'll be very understanding and accommodating for any students who are late due to any transportation issues. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next question?
Good evening. I'm a staff member at the high school, and I have a question. Since this is state mandated with the masks, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask what are the specific compliance protocols going to be for that, but is the state supporting the districts? Do the districts have the ability to design that themselves, or is it occurring at a higher level? In terms of, at the high school, the difference between, say, having the mask on and keeping it down, you're not going to be able to socially distance possibly with the 3 feet between the desks. So are the expectations going to be communicated in advance to the community and the students, either by building administrators or by the district, prior to the 8th?
Well, I know the governor was asked that question, and he did not answer what any repercussion or consequences would be, for students who were not wearing a mask. We will most definitely emphasize as we head into the new school year, coming from all of our schools, the importance of, wearing masks, wearing correctly, wearing the right type of masks. Then obviously, our teachers have a very difficult, challenging job teaching during a pandemic, and we're fully anticipating and hoping that all of our students will, comply and do the right thing, which they did largely last year. Again, we had kids all year, and most of them wore their masks, and they did it in a way which was effective. But again, that's going to be something that falls on all of us as a team to emphasize and address it if it's not happening in an appropriate way.
Okay, thank you very much.
Come on up. I feel like Price is Right. Come on down. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. I am a parent of one of the younger students, and he goes to Antal. And first and foremost, I want to say Maria Petsos and her team are amazing. They are very, very open to communication, and I appreciate that very much. My question is, considering that my child is still unable to be vaccinated, even if I wanted him to be vaccinated, I'm concerned, and I would like a little bit more information about a couple of things. One being, since all of the kids are going to be going back to school, what is the distancing? I heard the high school staff member talk about 3 feet. What is the plan for these kids who cannot be vaccinated?
We are going to do our best to always maintain 3 feet of distance, but there's actually no formal guidance anymore in any of these documents that we have to follow. But we are going to emphasize physical distancing, which is, I'm not doing this with a group of first and second graders, is not the easiest thing to do. We know that, but that is something that I think a lot of them got used to last year. And our teachers did a great job, having spent a lot of time in the schools emphasizing that from day one about physical distancing. So it will continue to be, truly emphasized in all of our classrooms and schools.
Okay, this is going to seem a little counterintuitive to my previous question, but so that means that our children are going to be encouraged to do minimal interaction with each other?
We like interaction, but we like distancing when it takes place. And I know you're right, that that's something which is contrary to something we've always embraced for meaningful interactions, but it's something that's going to, have to exist as we open this school year.
Okay, and then, because my concern is also just to clarify that, the whole school is gonna be full this year, not just, so I just wanted to make sure. And then I have one comment to make, and that is, I think that whoever the school bus drivers and aides are, I would ask that they be trained for what the proper protocol is for young children to be on the bus, because they did not try to, this summer, my son took the bus, and they weren't going to put him in a car seat. And the buses come equipped with car seats, and he's of an age where he should be in one. And from my understanding, he was not the only child that protocol wasn't followed. So I would just ask that, I know that a lot of people are new, that we make sure that we emphasize that the little ones need to be in car seats.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions this evening? Down. Good evening.
Hi, how are you? I have a couple questions just in general, talking to people in the community. Last year, food services was provided for all students who needed it at any time, whether it was pickup for virtual students and things like that. Will that continue as a statewide thing, or the federal government providing food for everybody, or is it going to be on the one-on-one basis as before with free and reduced lunch?
It is actually continuing. I realized last time I didn't turn this on. That program will continue this year, the only thing that's a little different is we found that if a child was going to order a snack and/or an a la carte menu, they would have to pay, which is why we just eliminated that. So every meal that we're going to serve will be eligible for that free program, so anybody can get a lunch and at no cost.
And is that an application process, or is that?
I'm sorry?
Is that an application process?
No, we are encouraging everyone, if you do qualify for free and reduced lunch, I'm highly recommending you continue to file the forms anyway, even though it's free for everybody, because the form helps us keep people in the system so that we don't know what's going to happen the next year, and we want to know who to send applications to. A lot can change in a 2-year period.
Thank you. Another question is the quarantine timeline. So if I have a student, say in the high school, who's vaccinated, but a student in the middle school who is not vaccinated, not old enough yet, what is the quarantine protocol for the family in general, or is it just for each student themselves?
As of right now, as we await future guidance, the non-vaccinated would have to do 7 days and then can test out after 7 days, or just 10 days. Vaccinated, we would ask that you monitor symptoms and just emphasize physical distancing and mask wearing, but if any symptoms pop up, immediately isolate.
Okay, and then for that same thing, so like if the younger student was quarantined because they could not be vaccinated, would the homeschooling situation be provided to them?
If we know that a child is going to be out for a quarantine period, we would do our best to replicate effective home instruction with a virtual component. But again, remember, we can't sit here and say it's going to be like we had last year with the fully virtual setup.
Okay. How about holiday quarantining? Will there be holiday quarantining after, say, like Thanksgiving and things like that?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see where we are at that time. Public health guidance. As you know, last year we ended up extending doing fully virtual after Thanksgiving and Christmas, which was a safe and prudent thing to do. I don't know, where we'll be at that time, but we will evaluate and talk to our public health experts for guidance.
Okay. And then lastly, as you guys know, I'm involved with a lot of the sports in town for the community partners. Communication-wise, will there be something sent out to like the rec leagues in the township saying this is where the dashboard is going to be if it's not going to be one-on-one?
Yeah, we'll publicize that widely and then point people to the dashboard and ask them to check it frequently during the year.
Okay. Thank you.
So one follow-up. Quarantine, if a child's vaccinated, there's no quarantine period, they just watch, is that what you're saying?
As of right now, if they're not vaccinated, if they're vaccinated, what's your question again, sir?
You said if they were not vaccinated, 7 days, 10 days.
Yeah.
If they are vaccinated, is there a quarantine at all?
Right now, we are going with what we were told, that if they're vaccinated, we ask that they emphasize distancing and mask wearing, right, and do not have to quarantine. That may change as we move forward, as we learn more from the CDC and our public health experts. So that's where we are right now, and we'll make sure that we emphasize going forward.
Right, one other question would be, you mentioned that 82% of staff have been vaccinated. That seems low to me. Has it been made available to all of them? And if not, what?
It has.
Okay.
We've worked very hard to get our staff vaccinated, very hard. We've emphasized the importance of it. This is what I know, what I've learned, and what I've emphasized is that, we have children who can't get vaccinated in all of our elementary schools. And what keeps them safe, and the best thing that we all can do, is to make sure everyone around them is vaccinated. So we've had clinics for our staff going back to January, collaboratives with public health entities, collaboratives with other school districts to provide them, early on last year to get vaccinated, which was always a major concern of ours, to make sure that our staff is as safe as possible. Now, right now, there's no mandated vaccinations. There is not. But we really strive to make sure as many of them got vaccinated as possible. And it's a good question. I'm going to go over our setup right here. I'm gonna ask Dennis to do it, because I want to put on my glasses. I want to kind of quickly touch on the, go ahead. Just to give you an overview of the different areas and where we are. But we're gonna keep emphasizing this as we go forward.
I'm also gonna just quickly mention that the 82% is based on people who have responded or have told us no. So I do believe that number is higher. You know, there's a couple people in a couple areas that I know they probably aren't looking at email because of just the type of job they do. But what we're doing is we're reaching out to those people individually and saying, hey, where are you? You didn't respond.
And according to the state, you know, we were told to survey our staff, you know, required to do so. We were also told that if you don't have a response, they are to be considered unvaccinated. You know, and I understand your point and I agree with you, but again, any child, this is our entire staff, so you know that 8 out of 10 people that they run into are vaccinated in our schools. We're going to continue to push, and as Dennis says too, we're hopeful that maybe some who didn't respond were indeed vaccinated. We did just a quick breakdown if you want to touch on it.
In terms of administrators, central office administrators, and supervisors, 89%. Custodians and maintenance, 67%. Now I would just say that's a group that I think it's probably higher, just because not all of them have a district email, or you know, it takes a little bit longer for them to respond sometimes. 90% of all of our food service workers, 77% of paraprofessionals, 94% of secretaries, 85% singletons, 44% IT, Mark, you guys failed, 83% of all of our teachers.
So we will continue to emphasize as we head into the school year the importance of vaccinations. And come on down.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have 2 children, and I agree with a lot of the comments that have been raised already. And first, I also want to thank everyone in the school district that has been so instrumental in making things as hopeful and positive as they can be during this time. And my 2 children are in elementary school, and they did virtual last year, and they flourished, and it was amazing. Their teachers were wonderful, and I want to thank them for that. I do still have concerns though, because for me, the situation has not changed for the elementary school kids. We're still in the same situation that we were back in March when we initially pivoted everything to online learning. They still are not protected. They still are out there at risk, even though the people around them are vaccinated. I am vaccinated, but I cannot push other parents to vaccinate themselves if they feel as though that is not something that they want to do. And in turn, that will put my child at risk. And as well, I think you mentioned that 82% of the staff is vaccinated, which is wonderful, but still that leaves risk for my kid, for my 2 children actually. And so I have a lot of concerns with that. I have done everything in my power to keep them safe. I have not done vacations. We have not been around family. We have not been in large group settings. We have been home. And for me, this school year, I feel as though I have to I'm being forced or pushed to just throw them out there. And I don't think that that's very fair, especially with everything that I've done to protect them. And I don't know if other parents agree, but I will do anything in my power to protect my kids, but if I'm forced to send them to school, and I know that the school district is doing everything that they can, I feel as though it's a possibility that I could fail. Like, am I going to make the wrong decision with this? And I don't want that. I feel as though if it's the governor's decision, then he should give the option, because parents should not be forced to send their children out there without protection. If the parents can be protected, if adults can be protected, it's just not there. And if I see that, you know, and a lot of things are still offered virtually, like meetings with adults etc., then that gives me mixed messages. Like, why are we doing meetings virtually if we're not willing to allow our kids to be virtual? And then we're going back to school at full capacity. That's a lot. And I think, did you mention that we're not going to do pods this year, correct? So it's fully integrated. So if you're fully integrating the entire school, how will you really contact trace every person that child may have come into contact with? I mean, for me, my husband had to go into work this year. And yes, he got COVID, and that was like way a long time ago, but he's better. And what I had to do to keep the rest of my family safe is beyond words. Like, we had to separate completely for like over a month. And I don't want that for any child. Like, how would I handle that situation if one of my children came home with COVID? How would I separate them from the other people in their family? How would I separate them from their little brother and their little sister, and from their parents? And for me, I'm in recovery, remission from lymphoma. What am I supposed to do? I just feel like everybody's forcing to get back to normal, but at what cost? And at what risk? I mean, our youth are our foundation for the community and for the world. But we, as much as we're trying with everything that I'm seeing in the presentations and around the world, trying to get back to normal, we are doing a disservice to them, in my opinion. And I just hope that there's some way that they can offer this opportunity virtual. I think I saw it in your presentation that if you have a specific situation, but if you don't have a specific situation, but you're just uncomfortable with your child going into school, is that still an option? Because for me, I am very involved with my kids in school. I do everything, and I'm not comfortable. And I appreciate all the time and effort that this district has done for our children, but I am not comfortable because you cannot guarantee me 100% that my kids will be safe. And that's just how I feel. And I apologize for this, but I don't know any other words or any other way to say it. So I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to the people that have been speaking today, and for listening to me. But I need an option. I need more than one option. I'm not ready to send them. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your powerful and poignant comments. Please know that we understand and respect them. You know, one thing that Dr. Shinabashi talked in our teaching and learning conversation is the fact that many of our kids did indeed thrive, in a virtual setup. There seemed to be a real rush to move away from it, not really acknowledging that as a new form of teaching and learning, that there were many kids, many kids who did do very well with it. And, definitely something I think, as a new and completely, somebody said a year ago that, half your kids would be learning virtually a year and a half ago. No one would have believed it, but sometimes I think we have to, when we do these things, really look at what's good about them and positive about them, and look to keep things when it truly does benefit some kids. So just a quick thought. Any other questions? Anything we can help you with? Yeah. If you talk to someone or you have a neighbor or a friend and they have questions, we're accessible all the time. I can be reached. Please reach out to our school district email. We'd be more than happy to address any questions you have as we look to bring back. There's another question? Yeah. Hello?
Hi, one more question. Are back to schools and parent meetings fully virtual, or can they meet one-on-one with their
The school's going to come out with that as we head towards the school year, okay? You'll probably see a little combination of both of them. Anything like that to that, Doc? Okay. But you will hear from each of your schools about those special events and meetings. So, Thank you all. Oh,
I
sorry.
know I had to sleep, but I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I forgot to add to my concern as a parent in the community. I want this going straight to the governor, Murphy, is that if you want this to be full in school, that there is no budget except the kids have illness or anything, he should put it in writing. Because if anything happened to any of our children, that he would be responsible. Okay, I know he's a grandfather, he have kids. He should understand our need as a parents. We love him, he did a great job during the pandemic. And I'm a Democrat, and I stand and I boast about him. So this, for us to be happy with him and to be happy in the district, please, I want you to please write our concern. We should not just leave from here and it just go down the breeze. But please, write to him and tell him our concern so he can rethink about some parents want the kids to come to school, some parents don't want. We don't feel comfortable, as I was saying. I have a young child that is coming in September, and they come from school, I can stop them, and I'm worried about it. I was a COVID victim once, and I know what my family went through. It was hell. Seeing the kids coming to school having COVID, and they're coming home for 7 days. Why would you put our kids in danger when we can prevent them? That's my concern. So please, if you are watching, Governor, I love you, but please, do something for us. Please.
Thank you. In closing, just truly appreciate you coming out tonight. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Tell your kids we're excited to see them 3 weeks from Wednesday, and don't feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything we can help you with. Have a wonderful night and have a wonderful rest of the summer. Thank you. Take care.